And hello, and welcome to AleksConnects Creative Sandbox. My name is Alex, and today we are continuing to work with simplification. Yeah, we're still kind of stuck on simplification. Again, as I said previously, the main thing is fundamentals, and until the whole reason for visiting fundamentals is not just practice them once and that's it, but actually re-understand them. So let me make camera not laggy and we'll continue. Wait a second. Oh, damn it. I hate when it happens. It's so freaking annoying. Okay, it works. Good. That's kind of it. So yeah, I guess we'll start, check the sound and go. Okay, it works. Cool. So again, in the previous session in Russian, I kind of talked about, we kind of revisited how to simplify efficiently, revisited the base. I'm going to talk about it in English. I will kind of quickly try to cover it in English too. And also we kind of come up with two different solutions, like how to work with solids and how to work with softs. So basically, I guess we're going to talk about this, kind of repeat the thing that I did in the previous session in Russian. And then we're just going to continue to solve all problems that I'm kind of having problems with, so yeah, let's just go. So again, throughout previous sessions, in most cases, we finished working on solids. In most cases, we kind of tried three versions of solids. The easy solid, which is the cup. Sorry about that. A little bit. Stop it. A little bit more complex solid, such as headphones. Oh, I slept for a couple of hours, so I have kind of a nervous tick. So my eye is going to go crazy today. So, oh, it's so freaking uncool. When it happens. So, yeah, we kind of covered headphones, which are a little bit more complicated in terms of how to approach them. Again, yeah, then we went to something a little bit more complex in terms of the construction, at least in terms of the amount of elements in one subject. And motorcycle was kind of a good idea because it has a lot of small parts, it has softs, it has solids, like a lot of combination. It actually was a pretty good thing to kind of analyze all parts, try to analyze from which basic primitive we could build them, how we could attack those stages, etc. So, and motorcycle was the first thing that basically I started to think about, okay, we have a lot of kind of close to soft elements, and how do we need to approach them, as softs or as solids? And based on these three basic studies, I created a kind of a method. Basically, how to simplify efficiently. So basically, I got all these things that I've kind of noticed throughout all these three solids. Also, I knew how potentially we could attack softs, and I knew that we need to diversify, or at least try to figure out how to attack softs and how to attack solids, because again, the approach to both of these things are going to be a little bit different. Although the methods and everything is going to be the same, but sometimes, if we're going to work with solids, we need to approach them different from if we would work with softs, because again, softs is something that basically has the element of deformation as its regular kind of property, when solids are usually static and they're not necessarily moving. And based on that, of course, we created this type of thing, which we would get to. So again, let's just revisit everything step by step, cover the base. So since I already talked about it in previous streams, let's just quickly cover the base. So in order to work with primitives, so it's kind of like for complete newbies, I guess, a quick note that if you don't understand why you need to work with primitives, or you can't start with primitives right away, the gradual step-by-step process to before starting to work with primitives. Usually, for me personally, at least, I kind of figuring out it is we need to start with plane. First, we need to learn how to draw planes, because of course it's going to be a little bit easier. So let me get into a drawing mode. So yeah, firstly we need to learn how to do is of course planes. Once we will learn how to draw planes, then we go and learn how to draw ellipses, how to work with ellipses in different positions, of course trying to think where exactly their direction is going. After we learn ellipses and planes, we combining them together into a plane ellipsis. I know it's a pretty weird combination of two words like plane ellipse, plane ellipsis. So, and when we combine two things together, we basically could go with this method that I talked about. So either we will start with plane and then we will figure out how exactly to put an ellipse inside of this plane, or we will start with ellipse and then we will figure out how to put a plane based, like create a plane based on this ellipse. Usually the method is figuring out where's the long side and where's the short side, because every ellipse has a long side and short side, and this is basically the way how we will be able to do that. The same way we're going to draw ellipse inside of the cube, so now we know, okay, this is the long side, this is the short side, sides, then we know that ellipse is going to go the same way. So it's going to help us to create not perfect ellipses, but at least decent looking ellipses. The same goes for ellipse. If you draw ellipse and you don't know how exactly to draw a plane to this ellipse, again do the same. Figure out the longest and the shortest part of the ellipse, and then based on that extend these lines a little bit and create lines that will intersect with the sides of the ellipse, and you will get basically the, how to properly say it, yeah, the proper look. So again, I will try to go a little bit quicker today because I kind of want to solve a lot of problems today, and my brain is not necessarily in the problem solving mode, so I'm going to kind of I don't know, stutter a lot. Hopefully not. Let's see. So again, the base is understanding planes, ellipses, understanding how to create them, then combining those things together, because again they are combined, and then start to work with primitives, because as I said previously, primitive is basically every cube consists of multiple planes. So this is the first plane, this is the second plane, third plane, and etc. So basically cube consists of a lot of planes, so if you know how to draw planes, in most cases you just need to combine four planes together, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, more than 6, 8, doesn't matter. So a lot of planes together, so you basically get the cube. The same goes with ellipses. If you want to create, of course, cylinders. Cylinders will help you, ellipses will help you to create cylinders, and understanding how they are combined together will help you to understand how to put cube, or the cylinder inside of the cube, or the opposite, how to create cube based on already existing ellipse. Cylinder, not ellipse. Yeah. The same goes for spheres. If you want to learn how to draw spheres, you basically learn how to draw ellipses and planes. Then you will know how to draw cubes. Then you will learn how to draw cylinders, and after you will learn how to draw cylinders, you will be able to draw spheres, because again, sphere is none other than just a kind of a perfect circle in which you can create a ellipses that will be the center of the sphere. And if you want to know how it basically looks in perspective, in terms of the change, again, do the same, create planes for it. And after creating planes for it, you will know, like, inside what cube this sphere is actually taking place. So again, everything is connected, like truly. If you will learn how to draw one thing, then it will help you to draw this thing. Then combining these two things together, you will learn how to work with this, and all this information will help you to work with primitives a little bit more efficiently. Because if you will dive into the primitives without understanding how to create their individual parts, such as planes and ellipses, you're not going to be able to produce a proper ellipse, like proper primitives. This is one of the problems that probably beginners are doing or making. Like a pretty big mistake. They're not focusing on these separate elements such as planes, ellipses, and their combination together, like to connect them together, and they are basically going right away into the primitives, and their primitives looking completely horrible. Like, okay, this is cube. Yeah, I actually am not going to be able to draw a bad cube. I don't know what the bad cube is actually. Okay, even this type of cube kind of has potential for existence. So, like, one of the problem with ellipses is this ellipse. Like, when you draw ellipse like this, of course, this is the wrong one. And the reason behind this, because, like, when beginners are drawing cylinders like this, the reason for that is because they're not familiar with ellipses yet. They don't know what it is. Like, because if you truly want to try to draw an ellipse or oval, all of us are knowing that ovals are look like this, like, so by nature. And if you would teach people how to draw ellipses, they're definitely never going to draw cylinders the wrong way. So they're not going to have problems with drawing proper cylinder, because they will know that the underlying structure of the cylinder is ellipse, and you can't create it. You have to create it from ellipses, from ellipses, not from these weird things that called like ellipses. Yeah, so like an eye shape thing, whatever. So again, so this is the base, and once you will cover this base, now there's a good potential for you to learn how to simplify. Okay, things are working, cool. Yeah, and then you basically will start to find a potential how to exactly simplify. So in terms of the simplification, I think first thing that we need to establish is, of course, the type of subject that we're working with. So if it's going to be solid or soft. If it's going to be solid, we need to consider the two basic states the solids are usually taking. So it's static, regular state, which is basically like, if we're going to talk about something like a pen, this is regular state of the pen. It's not going to change no matter what you're going to do with it. I mean, unless you're going to go into the extreme deformation, you're going to break it, or like, I don't know, sit on it and it basically crack and etc. Or it will deform if it's a plastic and basically will take a different shape. Again, usually solids are the reason why solids are so simple usually to draw, because if we know how to draw regular primitives, we will be able to attack solids without any problems. Again, almost all solids consists of regular cubes, slightly modified maybe, cylinders, and spheres, and basically their variations in methods or modifications, which we'll get there. So because of this, solids are usually easy to work with. They're easy to analyze because most of the solids you will attack using basic primitives. You will imagine like you're drawing basic primitives, then you will basically perform certain operations, modifications to change it, and in the end you will get something like this. Or something like this, something like this. So again, this is the easiest way to work with simplification of solids, because by looking at them as something hard and basically they're not going to change their state that often. The only way for them to change the state is to undergo an extreme deformation. Again, extreme deformation, kind of, we're going to look at this as something irreversible, so something you basically can't undo. But in most cases, we rarely will push our solids to the extremes, but again, we still need to understand that this is a possibility, so they're not always static. There could be a possibility that that by extreme deformation they might change. And even if we're going to look at it as static, we're still going to consider the fact that it could be deformed under certain conditions or circumstances. So, yeah, this is the way to attack solids. And again, usually it's easier. The hard part, which now I'm having troubles with, is softs. Because we dealt with solids previously, and for them, in most cases, I'm going to use this thing. I'm going to look at them as simplified primitives and basically analyze them as simple primitives, which is actually easy, because again, for that you just need to know how to draw planes, ellipses, combine them together, and basically utilize all this knowledge into the basic primitives. And of course, it's a good thing if you're familiar with modifications, like how to perform limited operations, scaling, moving individual points, edges, and planes, so as extended operations like Boolean operations for in uniting, subtracting, and intersecting, or between multiple primitives, or operations between their parts, such as adding or removing planes, edges, and points. All this information kind of could be a good thing, but again, this is here. So in most cases, the hardest part is to actually figure out how to attack them first, because like usually go into the methods and modifications easier if we know how to attack them here. If we don't know how to attack them here, we're going to make a lot of mistakes and we basically will struggle. So in most cases, yeah, you basically ask yourself a question: is it a soft or is it a solid? If it's a solid, in most cases you're going to attack it as primitive because it's easier to analyze. If you will deal with if you will deal with softs, this is the part when it goes a little bit more complex, and it all depends on what type of soft you're working with. And because of this, we kind of have a little bit like additional states. The first state is basically a static, the same way as here, but right here static is a regular static in which the subject is regularly appears because it's solid. When we talk about softs, it's a little bit much more harder to analyze them, because we need to consider their static as a relaxed state. Relaxed state for static depends on what type of relaxed state of static soft depends on what type of subject we're working with. So for instance, if it's a pillow, as we started to work with yesterday, we need to consider the pillow in the relaxed position. We talked about the combination of relaxed and unrelaxed positions previously. Let me open Pinterest. Kind of went through a quick demonstration. So again, if we're going to talk about pillows, for instance, depending on what the pillow is, it's... Wait a sec. Yeah, its relaxed state will depend on the design of the pillow. So for instance, we have pillows like this that are relaxed and they're actually looking relaxed. But we have certain pillows that actually kind of already by default in their relaxed position and relaxed state going to look like deformed ones. I saw it somewhere. actually demonstrated it yesterday. I completely lost it. Hopefully we're going to find it though. Yeah, for instance, this one. So this one kind of relaxed, but in reality it has a little bit of like a little bit deformation in here, and this deformation is basically perceived right here as a come on man, as relaxed position. We could see it as a functional deformation, but in reality it's just a static version of this pillow, because and this is what makes softs that much complicated. Because usually we're dealing with static relaxed, and we thinking about static relaxed as something that basically looks undeformed, but in reality, I guess I don't know where I'm going with this. Again, as I said before, my English today is going to be a bad one. Okay, we don't need that. Wait a sec. So, yeah, in terms of deformation, again, some of the pillows or some of the softs are going to look a little bit deformed by default. There are a lot of pillows that basically going to look deformed. They will appear deformed, but this is going to be their static. Okay, pillow with buttons. Yeah, I guess let's just take that one as an example. I need buttons that are inside of the pillow and that they basically deforming the pillow. Yeah, we're not going to find it here. I found it yesterday, but for some reason I'm not seeing it today. It's weird. What's happened with pillows? It was so perfect example yesterday, but today this example is basically disappeared. It's truly disappeared, I'm not seeing it. This is not necessarily it, this is just a donut shape. Pillow. I'm not finding the deformed one. Either way, we're not going to stay on this for a long time. If I'm not going to find it, I'm just going to skip it. So it's better to actually draw it. There's a potential that we could find it here. Nope. So basically what I'm talking about again, this is the pillow in its regular, so this is the pillow in its relaxed pose, in its relaxed position, and of course it's not deformed. There is a slight deformation in here, as I'm calling it a functional deformation. What functional deformation is? It's basically every time that pillow is going to take a different position. For instance, right here we could see that the gravity forces this pillow to change. And this is what I'm calling a functional deformation. So basically, depending on what this pillow is doing, like what purpose it serves. So if you put your head on this pillow, it will deform functionally. If you will put the elbow on this pillow, it will deform functionally. So again, functional deformation is something that makes pillow basically changes the form and of the pillow in this particular instance, or the form of the soft. Static relaxed is basically finding the way what position for this pillow is actually relaxed. And again, sometimes pillows are regular like this, but we actually have pillows like this. For instance, let's just throw in super quick and easy pillow. It's going to be probably a bad example, but still. So let's imagine that this is a pillow, and this is the regular state of the pillow. This is her relaxed static. We able to actually create two versions of the relaxed static. So this is the regular pillow. that doesn't have any relaxed deformation by design. And what I tried to find in references that I couldn't is this. So for instance, the pillow that has deformations by design, and we're going to look at them as relaxed too, even though they are, again, there's a lot of kind of form lines are going to be, it's probably going to look bad, but still. So this one considers as deformation, but it's not a functional deformation, it's more like the deformation by design. So this pillow is deformed by design, because this is the way that this pillow created. So, and because of this, this is the relaxed state of this pillow, not the functional one. Yeah, we're really going to see these parts. And there's a lot of softs like this, when basically we have a regular soft surface, which is considered by design a static, relaxed static for this particular pillow. And this particular pillow, it's relaxed static too. So in both cases it's relaxed, but right here we don't have any deformation at all. But in here we actually have some kind of a deformation, and this deformation could throw you away a little bit, because you don't know like what this type of deformation is if you're not familiar with this particular subject. If you know that, okay, these things are created by design, so this is not deformation, this is its relaxed state, then it's going to be clear. But there are a lot of subjects that you're not familiar with functionally, and if you don't know how they're actually created in their relaxed state, it's going to be a little bit harder for you to analyze it. So because of this, I kind of wanted to address it. Hopefully it's clear. So in both cases, this and this are both static relaxed. If we're going to try to functionally deform them, then there's going to be some type of interaction. It could be a good idea to actually create an example for it. So again, let's just revisit. So this is our static relaxed. So this is going to be our static relaxed, and this is going to be our static relaxed too. But this static relaxed is a little bit different by design. So we're not seeing these things as deformations, they are static. Okay, so yeah, let's just make this one a little bit more looking like a pillow. And this is the problem with softs, because when we're dealing with solids, it's a little bit easier because we're not working with form lines. But if we're working with softs, we need to think not only about the primitives, but now we need to think about silhouette. Now we need to think about form lines, and we need to think about how to deal with peaks and valleys. So basically, like I created the example here. So we could look at them as regular primitives, or when we're dealing with solids, but when we're dealing with softs, we need to deal with them as something silhouette based. So basically, silhouette is going to be the base for it, but then inside of it we're going to change its form. So again, these are kind of like cylinders, wired cylinders, so these things are kind of looking like wired cylinders, and this one is not necessarily wired cylinder because again it has a different form, but silhouette is the same. So, and right here we basically adapted silhouette to a new form by changing it slightly. So this is basically what I'm talking about when we're talking about how to attack softs. So it's all about how to attack them. First we need to view them as like figured out what is the relaxed state of this static soft, then we need to understand, like, is it undergoing functional deformation or not? Sometimes this functional deformation not necessarily going to be like evident. So for instance, right here, we're not seeing functional deformation when because there's not necessarily any interactions right here that basically changes the pillow. The slight deformation here that changes silhouette a little bit. It's barely visible, but it's here under its own weight. So we have something like this here. Slight change in here, probably going to be 2. Again, it's barely visible, but it's still. This is functional deformation. So instead of just being like this, under its own weight, gravity pushes it down, and because of this, or pulls it down, and because of this, this thing basically starts to deform. And the same way we're going to work with wrinkles and other things in organic. So okay, and the same goes with the clothes, with the drapery. So drapery will behave similar way. So again, organic is a little bit more complex, and like in most cases, soft is usually a little bit more complex because you need to consider a lot of states, not only the static relax, but functional deformation. And again, extreme deformation works right here the same way as for the solid. It's irreversible state, so it can be undone. So if you're going to tear this drapery, for instance, like create a tear in here, it's just going to create a tear in this drapery, and that's it. So it's basically will change the behavior of this drapery. So this is kind of an extreme deformation. Regular deformation or functional deformation is something like this. So for instance, right here, if we're talking about the drapery, this is the functional deformation. It's not relaxed. It's kind of performs some type of function. Maybe it lies on the floor, for instance. In this particular instance, we could imagine like it lies on the floor from this thing. Like it lies on the floor. And it already has a lot of like functional elements to it. It's not just static. Static position for it probably could be a completely relaxed position. Although it's pretty hard with the drapery though, because drapery is super adaptable, which is the problem. Depending where you're going to place the drapery, it's going to like completely. It's going to appear differently, which is the problem. This is something that definitely need to think about. I don't know what it is. So again, static relaxed, static. This one's static relaxed too. Now let's just create a versions of these pillows with slightly deformed. Let's combine all of them. Save. Skibidi baboo. Create a little bit more space, and let's just call it functional deformation in here, not relaxed static, of course. Let's just duplicate that one. I don't want to write it. Okay, it's not here, it's in text. Boom. So this is basically a functional deformation in both cases. And let's just try to work with functional deformation now. So how exactly we'll be able to deform it. So again, these two things will deform a little bit differently because if we're going to create some type of a pressure, so let's just assume that we're going to put in something like this here. Don't ask me what this is exactly. Let's just assume that this is something that basically presses the pillow, and now it's going to change it. So by creating this pressure now, the functional deformation will make this pillow look differently, depending what this material is, though. And this is the hardest part about softs. It's pretty hard to predict how it will actually change. So we're barely going to see this part, though. Deformation will probably appear so again, instead of being flat, it's just now takes the form of the object that it interacts with. And this is the hardest part about softs, still finding a way to recreate this type of behavior. And this is a bad example. Ideally, if I will truly kind of like spend time on it, I need to analyze a lot of stuff. Like for instance, the actual shape of this part. So is it like if it's going to be a spherical shape, then it's going to create relatively same like the spherical behavior in here, like, or elliptical behavior. If not, if it's going to be a little bit more pointy, then of course it will create a lot of kind of lines like this. So again, it all depends on the material of the pillow that we're working with, so there's a lot of things to consider. We're not going to go there. What I'm dealing with now, it's just the basic stuff. I don't want to overcomplicate things. And we'll do the same here. Yeah, the change here is going to be completely different. Let's assume that. That's actually needs to be a little bit bigger. Yeah, let's just take that one. And let's picture this one as a sphere. Spherical. This one is a little bit more tilted though. Maybe I could look at this from this type of angle. Okay, so now the change will be pretty crazy. It's actually, in this particular instance, probably better to change it like this, not to redraw it too much. So this one actually will become barely visible now. So let's assume that this is a functional deformation. Yeah, this is a pretty bad example. I need to spend probably a little bit more time to actually analyze it properly, but again, in this particular instance, it's not necessary. So the reason why it deforms a little bit differently, right here it kind of creates almost straight lines and basically pulls these buttons out there. And because of this, we're not seeing this kind of peak right here. So the peak right here, if we're going to talk about peaks and valleys, so again, this is a peak that it goes into the valley. So the peaks and valleys right here are a little bit more evident because the structure of the material, it's a little bit more consistent. So if we're going to press here, it will gradually, like it will not gradually, but it actually could create much bigger hole in here. Right here it's not going to be the case, probably because of these things. They're already pushing parts of the pillow together by default, and when we apply another pressure in here, it's basically too much tension. This thing basically pulls it here, like this thing pulls it here, this thing pulls it here, this thing pulls it here, this one again pulls it towards this button, and then we're basically pressing down, and we're seeing contradicting behavior. So it's like you're trying to push something that's already being pulled out. So it's like stretching something, and because of this, the lines that are going to be created here, or the transitions, are going to be a little bit different. So they're going to be a little bit more straighter, and the peaks and valleys are going to be barely noticeable. Like the valley is going to be here, but it's going to be kind of barely visible transition. And because of this, we're not going to see super big peak in here either. So the same goes here. And again, I don't know why I decided to talk about pillow. Ideally, I kind of wanted to solve a little bit different problems today, not just like figuring out how to deal with the pillow. Ideally, I wanted to spend time on working with figuring out how to better attack softs. We started with the pillow. We started with figuring out the plane first. So if you want to create something like a pillow, it's better to analyze it first like a plane. Then figure out the silhouette, the basic silhouette for this pillow. So we're basically analyzing all positions of the pillow, and now we know that in most cases pillow is going to have some type of curvature in here. Then we're basically applying this curvature to this plane. And now we know the points. Then we're basically creating probably a cube to notice the width of it. Let's just assume that this is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3, when we're basically creating a final pillow though. They're a little bit different though in shapes, but still, it doesn't matter. Again, the approach. So again, right here we're starting with the plane. Here we adding a cube. We're establishing center for this cube. And then, now we know where is this part, where's the bottom part. And then starting to connect pieces together, knowing that we need to save or maintain this type of silhouette. And then just basically we'll start to create a lot of form lines. And the question was in form lines, how to attack form lines, because part of me started to create form lines as cylinders. So again, we could attack and look at form lines as elliptical shapes like cylinders, or like conic shape. But it's probably not necessarily a good idea, because in most cases the shape of the pillow is going to more likely work like this. Where's better? So for instance, right here, it's not just one big thing. So it's not just like this. It's probably going to behave a little bit differently in these areas. So it's going to have its own directionality to it. And this is the problem, like how to figure it out. Because there's going to be some type of directionality in here, and then it will go here. This is where working with polygons in 3D probably could be a good idea, to actually try it in 3D and see how exactly we could create this type of pillow. Because it's like creating a separate polygons. So we need to maintain the whole form by creating form lines. And then we need to create a transitions like this, which are not going to be just like this. Again, they have a different direction. And this is the problem with softs. The problem with softs is in the fact that depending on the changing, like, we can change this direction whatever we like. So we could create this direction like this, we could just create it like this and create a hole in here. And this is the problem. We need to know how to control it somehow. And for me personally, it's kind of mind-blowing that you can't control it. Because I just analyze the subject, figured out its, so for instance right here, it's not going to just work like an elliptical shape. The form lines are going to look something like this, because it starts from here. It starts from here. Maybe we could kind of create something like this, then connect them together. I don't know. Maybe they're going to intersect. Pillows. Thing is, this is just a pillow. When we're going to work with much more complex objects, it's going to be harder. Or maybe easier. The thing with the pillow, again, it has a pretty, like, I don't know how to properly say it. It can be deformed functionally a lot. So there's a lot of possibilities when we're talking about pillow deformation. It could be deformed however you like. It could be squashed, it could be basically, for instance, we could look at this deformation like this. So let's just copy this one and try to imagine like this pillow now got shrinked by a rope like this, and now it's basically going to probably going to be a bad example again. We'll try it though either way. This thing will probably slightly change. So again, imagine like you are taking the pillow and basically squeezing it. It has to be a pretty small pillow though to do that. You can do that like this, like a choke hold. So from 4 sides, and it basically changes the form now. And the only way to know how to properly establish this form is to analyze the basic form first. The basic form of the pillow. And here is the place where the basic primitives are going to help us though. I'm not considering material, because of this it's not going to look right. Ideally we need to consider from what type of material this pillow is made of. Like what type of cloth it's made of, what's inside of it. It all will depend, it all will change how it's going to behave. But in most cases, this is just like a kind of a bad example. And then again, we need to figure out where exactly these form lines are going to go. And this is the problem. Because sometimes these form lines are going to start like this right here. And then kind of go somewhere there. It's pretty hard to predict their behavior. From the brain, actually, like from the mind. If you will have reference, even with the reference, it's probably going to be not easy. Let's just try to find this type of deformed pillows in Pinterest, maybe. Okay, how to search it though? Pillow. I don't need a static pillow. I need a dynamic pillow. I doubt that we were going to find a dynamic pillow. It just seems stupid. Yeah, we're going to find dynamic patterns, but not the actual dynamic pillow. Pillows in use. No, it's just going to show us a lot of... Like even right here, like we're seeing the connection of this girl with this pillow, and it basically creates this deformation. We need a lot of references like this to know how to behave, how to actually create this behavior, but it's not easy to create this behavior from your brain, from your mind. And again, depending on what's under it, it will change. So for instance, right here, there's not that big of a deformation in the pillow. It's actually kind of almost stays the same. Right here it's all like not changing at all. Not changing. Not changing. So it all depends on the material though. And you're not going to be able to search for a certain position for the pillow. You need to figure out it from your mind. And this is the problem though. And at least I'm having. How to analyze it. Okay, pillow squeezed. It's probably the wrong one. Let's see. Yeah, we're not going to find this squeezed pillow. It's just going to find a weird solutions. This is the place when we need to take real life to analyze it. Just take a pillow in real life and try to... Okay, this is fun. Per cat. Talking about deformation though. This is interesting. Yeah, there's not that many squeezed pillows. It's really not that many. What cats are doing here? Seriously, what cats are doing here? No. Because we had a cat. Okay, whatever. So... let's just go with pillow. Because again, the pillow is combination of two things. It's basically a combination of drapery and the insides of the pillow, the soft material inside of it. So, and because of this, you need to consider how both of them are going to behave. And this is where it becomes hard. Complex. And based on that, you will establish how exactly functional deformation will work. Could be a good idea to actually establish it. So let's establish that functional deformation in most cases are going to depend on 3 factors. 3, not 2. The material, cloth. Okay, let's say that not every soft has cloth. It's going to be hard to categorize. Don't tell me that you need to create a categorization for each type of subject. There's so many softs that it's actually hard to understand how to attack them properly. Let's just try to think what type of softs we could have. So first category, it's definitely going to be drapery. So let's just softs. So first soft is basically drapery. Another soft that we could think about is the insides of the couches, pillows. Maybe we could call them stuffing. Let's see. We need to find a way to categorize it. So stuffing. No, stuffing is probably going to be something edible. No, I don't want to search that. Packing. Yeah, it's actually called stuffing, but in most cases it's packing, something that's inside. Filling. It could be filling though. But I doubt that we're going to find something like filling. No, snap. Again, food, come on. Filling. Nah, I don't know what to search for. Pillow filling? I don't know, let's just try to find it. Pillow filling. No, this is by the way pretty like good example of the deformation. There's a lot of like functional deformations in here. And again, it all depends on the stuffing of this pillow, what's inside of it, of the material itself, because material will create a different behavior on the top. This is kind of... Yeah, let's just create a couple of categories, and based on those categories we will figure out how to approach each of those categories better, because this is the only way that I could think of how to solve this. Let's just open intellectual map. I have a lot of information there that I could use, so... Okay. So, the drapery, then we have, of course, let's just call it stuffing, kind of like how it sounds. What's inside? Like insides. Drapery usually is outsides. Let's just call it just inside. So stuffing is something that's inside. Oh snap. Oh, it's lags. Let's save. So in softs, first category is drapery. Guess we could call it separate one. So drapery usually it's going to be something outside. Stuffing, what's inside. So what's inside of this soft thing we're working with. And the other category, it's kind of organic. For now at least. The problem with organic is going to be diverse, because there's a lot of places with organic that we need to think about the insides of this organic and outsides of this organic too. Oh no. Tell me that 3 days. Okay, now let's find it and open it. So let's just close that, wait a second. I need to open my creating fundamentals kind of information. It's all about categories, because again, if we're going to think about how to attack something like a pillow, we need to know how to attack something like a pillow. We need to create a different categories for it. So for instance, for the pillow, we're going to combine these two together. So we're going to think about drapery of the pillow in which it's dressed, and stuffing what's inside of this pillow. Both of these things are kind of important, and based on that we're going to understand how functional deformation is going to behave. Let's just create it as a ribbon. Just imagine that it's tied by a ribbon. What is this? It's a present pillow. Let's imagine it as a present pillow. Usually we need 2 of them, yes? Let's draw one of them there. It's going to be barely... It's happening, why it's not drawing? Oh, selection. Let's assume that it works like this. So all of these methods are kind of functional deformation, but it all depends on the material of the things that we're working with. So let me see. I have a lot of information how to categorize it. What's happening? What? Why it's so fast? Wait a minute. Okay, it's fine. By the way, how about time? Yeah, we have about like 15 minutes till the end of the session, so we actually have a lot of time, which is pretty cool. Let's continue to search for it. So I'm not going to see chat, so don't try and write anything. I'm not going to see it either way. So what else we have? So we have types of materials. Yes. I already created categories for it. I kind of want to open it and just revisit it. It's going to be a little bit easier than trying to come up with them again. Drapery is definitely going to be separate. Stuffing is something that I never thought about though. I truly never thought about stuffing it I knew that this is important, but usually it's disregarded. But sometimes it's important. When it comes down to organic, I don't know how to attack organic. Again, it's pretty complex. Do we have sound? Am I hearing myself? Do we have sound? Yes, good. So, okay. I created a separate category for drapery. It basically works with everything that works with clothes, every type of clothes. And what things we need to consider when we're talking about clothes. Even including eyeglasses, which kind of something that we can wear too. So headwear. So even glasses are under this category, but it's more like a not a soft. It's of course going to be a solid. Yeah, glasses are 100% solid, but it kind of has certain characteristics of the soft when we're going to build it. So yeah, glasses are not soft. They're solid. Let's think. Yeah, I have separate category for drapery. Which basically deals with a lot of stuff. Usually folds, type of folds, type of drapery, what you can do with drapery. Basically the extremes again. The functional deformations and the extremes of the drapery are like, there's a lot of them. The points of interaction, the material, I need to find it, where is it? It's probably a different place. I doubt that it's there though. It needs to be here though. Yeah, it's definitely here. Shape, text, layout, no. Yeah, so I created a lot of stuff. It's actually almost in Russian. It probably could be easier for me to talk about it in Russian, but I will try to talk about it in English though. So, in most cases, yeah, we always need to start with object and subject. For me, I kind of decided to separate them into living things and non-living things. So all non-living things are one category, and living things are one category. So basically organic and non-organic. And then we have hybrid. But it's not necessarily helps us to properly work with simplification, so it's probably a bad idea to do that. It's probably better to simplify them by softs and solids. It's kind of will make things a little bit easier. Because now we know how to draw almost every solid, and the only thing that we need to figure out is how to attack softs. And since softs are much more complex, you can simplify all of them as solids. We need to create separate categories for them, and this is the question: what type of categories they're going to be? Let's think though. Why not? Okay, so we have elements such as water, wind, fire, cold, etc. So like all these things are kind of elements. We're not going to think about them as softs and solids. So there's an other category which again, soft, solids, and elements. We're going to attack elements completely differently. We're not going to talk about elements yet, but in most cases this is effects, and state of the elements are usually elements, elementi. Hopefully I will be able to come up with a good categorization though. Boom. Oh, Boba to Boba, I saw you... the octopus pillow. Yeah, the octopus pillow is kind of a good idea. I mean... the octopus pillow, kind of cool stuff. Looks good. Let's open it here though. The octopus pillow. So yeah, Bob to Bobo basically posted a example of the different kind of shaped pillow, which is again kind of a lot of complexity. But again, this is a pretty interesting kind of thing when we going to talk about it. Like, I don't know. Ideally, attacking this one, it's a pillow, but it created based on organic form. I mean, visually. And attacking it, kind of an interesting question how to attack it. It's probably better to attack it as something... let's just save it as a example. Kind of a good example to analyze. Let's put it in here. Where is the reference? Here. 50%. Put them together. Lock it. Let's place it here. A little bit organizing. I forgot to organize stuff. So yeah, let's keep it that way. So again, the octopus is a good example of like the hybrid between organic and non-organic. Like ideally this is the octopus, if it's the, I don't know if it's an octopus or not. Yeah, this is an octopus. So ideally this octopus, it's a good example of where to push it and how to push it and how to look at it. Let's just get back here. Because this is an interesting example of the hybrid. Like ideally we could attack it as simple primitives, if it has simple primitives. So for instance, these parts are easier to look as wired cylinders. So for instance, these parts are basically wired cylinders. It's a big one. Yeah, so these parts are going to be wired cylinders. It's a bad example, but still. When we're trying to objectify or subjectify something like a pillow and give it a different form, we're going to attack it based on what, like, on the form that we're, like, on the primitives that we're going to look, like, see in it. So for instance, this one probably easy to look at now as a cylinders. This is going to be kind of a fuse between organic and non-organic. I don't know. I truly confused at this point a little bit. Maybe the reason why I confused it because I'm trying to overcomplicate things again. Eventually we'll find the answer. This is, by the way, a good example of ribbon twist. So for instance, right here we have a twist of the ribbon. It basically goes there, and then it twists here. This is the place where the ribbon effect is going to be important. This is going to be our center. Yeah, so the octopus pillow, if it's a pillow, it actually looks like a pillow. Of course, it's going to be created based kind of on organic stuff. So again, usually when we're going to talk about organics, they're usually a hybrid. It's never one thing. All organics are hybrid, they're never one thing, and this is kind of what makes things a little bit more complex. Maybe we don't need to think about drapery though. Let's see. So organic has two categories. It has basically skin, not three, it actually has four. Hair, and what's underneath. That's probably the wrong one. What's underneath? Underneath. No, it's actually right. Cool. So basically, we could think about what's underneath, which in most cases is the anatomy. Bones and muscles. And skin, hair is basically underlying structure. So the same thing. So these things are kind of similar. Oh, I know what to do though. Non-organic softs and organic softs. Could be a good idea to separate them that way. So if we're going to separate them that way, so again, these are going to be our hybrids. These are hybrids too though. It's a different type of hybrid, but it's still hybrid. So these things are similar. So again, for non-organic hybrids, drapery it's kind of usually an outside if we're not separating it like a regular. For instance, if we're going to talk about just the drapery, it's not going to be a hybrid. But maybe there needs to be a separate category with just the drapery. I need to think. because this is non-organic hybrids, which is again something like a pillow, like a couch, drapery is going to go separately, and usually drapery could be made from organic elements, so it's probably not good. It's not a good idea to put it in this category. So when we talk about hybrids, again, we need to think about stuffing what's inside, and it's kind of the same as for the anatomy. So what's inside? What's outside? And in this particular instance, drapery, I guess drapery is going to be just separate. Softs and solids. Let's just not call it drapery, I don't know. Let's think. Yeah, it's not drapery. It's just cloth from which it's made, maybe. Let's see. Fabric, maybe? We could think about the material though, like overall. Just the material from which it's made. Because drapery is a little bit different. So slowly but surely we get in there. Okay, let's save that one. So what type of softs we have? So again, usually I guess that's kind of it. So we have organic softs, non-organic softs. So hybrids such as pillows, drapery as a separate soft, and human form. I know where to go. And the third thing is our elements. It's going to be harder with elements though. So we have transparent elements. Just figure out states for the elements. today my brain don't wants to work properly. I still will try to do that though. Let's move this one a little bit here. And let's figure out the elements. So we're not going to talk about the elements such as fire, water, and etc. Maybe we need to, I don't know. We need to think how to categorize them properly though. Let's see. So it all comes down to the materials and textures. So in materials and textures, what I have skin category, which is pretty big. Atmospheric effects, which is basically the elements of some kind. We have clouds. We have water, we have fire, and we have smoke. I guess we could actually put this one here, because each of them is going to be like attacked a little bit differently. Yeah, let's just do exactly that. Why not? So we're going to have clouds. Hopefully it's right. There's going to be more than 3, of course, so we're probably going to need to move that one too. So we have clouds, we have water, just water. What? We have fire. Clouds and smoke, they actually could be in one category. We could attack them similarly. Both of them are created from gases of some kind. Yeah, so clouds and smoke probably need to be in one category. Let's just put them under one. And hopefully I'm back. Magical OBS got crashed. It was pretty unpredictable. I didn't want for a crash to happen, but it happened, unfortunately. So yeah, we continue to, let's just check the sound. Yeah, good, works fine. So again, we're working with elements. We have clouds, we have smoke, we have, again, clouds and smoke are going to be in one category. We're going to think about them as a different thing, because there is a similarity between them, but in reality they're kind of a little bit different. But in most cases, they're actually similar. I don't know. They're kind of similar, but they have different, different classifications, because the clouds have different classifications from the smoke. They have a little bit different volume, conditions in which they appear. But yeah, we could actually combine them together as elements. So clouds and smoke, water and fire. The rest we're going to like ice and other, and for instance ground. We're going to just look at as solid. So these are the elements that we need to kind of attack a little bit differently. We're not going to talk about elements yet. This is something that just basically we will leave to materials, working with materials, because usually we're going to achieve those elements by working with materials. It's a shame. I'm going to lose the first part of the stream. A pretty big chunk of the stream. Again, till the end of the stream we get like 30 minutes less or less. So okay, we have solid, again static regular, extreme deformation, which is usually irreversible. We have soft, which is static relaxed. Usually we're going to use a functional deformation here. Extreme deformation will be irreversible, and it all applies. This relaxed, static, functional deformation, and extreme deformation will all apply to non-organic hybrid, to organic hybrid, and to a drapery. Again, we all know that drapery could be drawn in different positions. So for instance, you could look at this drapery as just hanging from this kind of pole, and then the wind is moving it. This is one way to look at it. The other way, as I already show it, is basically imagine like this drapery is just basically placed on the floor. It's not probably going to be placed like this. We're going to need to have something here to create this type of thing, but either way. So it works with drapery, functional deformation and extreme deformation. It works with non-organic hybrids. They're basically based on outside material and inside material. In both cases, we're going to perceive them as material, but one material is going to be outside, the other one is going to be inside. Yeah, it's probably not going to be a good idea to call it material. Let's just call it fabric. Just call it fabric. So, fabric from which it's made of and stuffing what's inside. The thing is, like, I still need to consider how many softs are there. So let me find my big intellectual map where I had all potential, all existing things in the world. So let me find it. Ugh. Yeah, today's stream is kind of slow. I slept for a couple of hours only, so I'm not feeling that well, which is fine. So here it is. So what we have. So we have elements. Elements are usually water. It could basically moisturize things. Fire basically dries out things. Clouds are increasing our visibility. Usually clouds and smoke are going to be used so as atmospheric perspective, are going to be used to create a atmospheric perspective, like the effect of the depth. Climate, the same, just basically combinations of the elements. Water is basically rain. So let me see. We could think about chemical stuff. I mean, it's a little bit different when we go into the chemistry. I'm not going to touch upon chemistry though. It will go with elements. Okay, let's see. So we have a base, we have situations, which is not the same. So here it is, found it. So yeah, we need subjects and objects. What type of subjects and objects are actually exist? So in terms of the subjects, we have bacteria, we have which you're probably not going to be able to draw, and in most cases they're going to be simplified to a simple primitive and just going to be perceived as organic hybrid. We have vegetation, which is again trees. Trees are kind of interesting ones. I mean, if we're going to talk about the trees and how they appear, like they have solid in here, they have leaves that kind of look a little bit unique depending on what type of tree we're working with. So I'm just trying to analyze things, so nothing concrete in here, it's just trying to do it live. Fruits, vegetables, yeah, in most cases we could look at them as non-organic hybrids too, but they're kind of organic. What is definition of organic, by the way? Am I confusing things? Let's just go and find the organic definition. Relating from living matter, organic, bodily organ and organs. Because the thing is, like, if we're going to talk about vegetation, it's organic. So, for instance, if we're going to talk about, for instance, an apple, so an apple is none other than an organic element. Let's just assume that this is an apple. So apple has skin on top of it. If it's a different fruit, for instance, like kiwi. Kiwi has hair on top of it and skin too. So yeah, I guess organic hybrids are vegetations too. Could be a good idea to actually establish them. So let's just create. So what are the organic hybrids? And what are the hybrid softs, and what are the drapery things? Because again, it's not the same with solids. With solids, it's a little bit easier to simplify everything. With softs, it's a little bit more, much more complex. Okay, let's put it here. I kind of opened a lot of stuff, so right now I need to close half of it. So organic is basically all vegetation. All vegetation, basically animal kingdom. And that's where it gets hard when it comes down to classifications, because depending on the type of classifications, we could classify them the right way, the scientific way, or our own way. Because, for instance, we are animals too as humans, but sometimes humans and animals are separated. Like, for instance, like, okay, humans. But in reality, we are the animals. But we could approach them separately as artists. So, and this is where classification gets a little bit tricky, because if you will categorize it that way, scientific people are going to call it improper classification. And I try to classify them on my own, like just creatures in general. So we might actually call them not animals, but actually creatures, like the vegetation. And creatures, it's basically consists of everything. Bacterias, bacteria. Fungus is probably going to be vegetation. Insects, fish, birds, animals, primates, people. I guess just vegetation and creatures. That's it. Fungus, it's going to be in vegetation. Yeah, fungus, and it's going to be in. So, two categories of hybrids: vegetation and creatures. Guess that's kind of it. So now let's figure out what type of softs we're going to have in drapery and non-organic hybrids. And by the way, by creatures I mean all types of creatures, like aliens, gods, giants, mythical creatures, spirits, ghosts, like even in the realm of fantasy and sci-fi too. Even robots, they're kind of, if they have soul, they're going to be kind of semi-organic. But again, when we talk about robots and robotic structures, usually we're going to attack them as solids. But if they're going to create a hybrid between soft and solid, then we're going to look at them as something like organic that has the solid anatomy underneath, something like this. So vegetations, robots, transformers, cyborgs. Yeah, so now we'll go into objects. So with objects it's a little bit harder, because, okay, we have objects like transportation. Yeah, I guess transportation. Buildings. But again, it's in most cases it's going to be solid. This is, by the way, a good way to create categories for solids too. Let's just do the same with solid. Solids. Solids are going to have categories too. So, solids usually it's transport, and again, transportations usually is hybrid. So we're going to think about them as all of them are going to be non-organic. Let's just call them hybrids. We have hybrid solids and we have regular solids. I don't believe that there's that many regular solids though, in reality. I guess all of them are kind of hybrid ones. So, kind of an interesting thing. So under the hybrids, what we have, so transportation, transport, or transportation. I don't know how to properly call it though. Let's figure it out. Transport. Let's just transport. I'll just call it transport as category. So we have transport, again, any type of cars, subway, metro, transport of the future, of the past, city, sports cars, personal, water, in the air, flying machines, cosmic, and technical. Then we have buildings, and buildings usually are made from regular materials. They're not necessarily hybrids. Usually it's better to perceive them as buildings slash constructions. Buildings slash constructions. So transport is going to be here. Then we'll go into the instruments. Hardware, something that we could meet in real life. Tools, equipment, and devices. Yeah, let's just call it like this. So when it comes down to tools and equipments and devices, it's kind of in a mix. They are in between, I believe. They could be hybrids or they could be regular ones. The same probably goes with constructions. Most of the constructions could be made in a hybrid way, depending what type of... Almost all transport has a hybrid behavior. It has softs and solids in it. Almost all buildings are regular. You're rarely going to see something, at least visually. It's just blocks. Then we have tools, equipment, and devices. Pen, computer, everything basically surrounds us. It could be perceived, usually it's going to be perceived as solid. And this is where the problem lies, because sometimes certain tools and equipments could be perceived as softs, but probably not. Let's see. So what we have here, razor, for instance, bag. I guess we could add this one here. I need to make it smaller. Okay, so what? So transport, buildings, constructions, tools and equipment, devices. The same tools, equipment, and devices could be made from non-organic elements and could be a pure soft. So because of this, we're probably going to put them there. As a subcategory, it's going to be on the bottom. Because again, medical equipment, for instance, like there's a lot of things that are made from softs. In most cases, they're probably not. Then we will go into the technology. Usually technology, like, again, when it goes down to the technology, it's kind of a hard one. It could be covered in tools, equipments, and devices, though. I'm viewing it a little bit differently in Russian, though. This is the problem. Thinking. Okay, let's think. Technology, engineering. Maybe we could call them machines. Yeah, we could actually call them machines. At least in English. Mechanical equipment. I don't know how to properly categorize it in English, though. Like, truly don't know. I have a pretty clear categorization in Russian. Like I have tools, equipment, and devices separate, инструмент, оборудование, приборы, and equipment, which is техника, separate. And you can't separate that way in English because all of them are equipment, which is kind of a problem. Tools and devices, and we could basically put an equipment in here, maybe. Yeah, let's just move equipment then. Now machines, and equipment here, and here's just going to be tools and devices. Again, equipment could be in between, depending on what type of equipment, I guess. So let's see. Most of the equipments are actually not hybrids at all, but there are hybrid elements though to them. But they're more leaning towards regular. And then we have the last category, which is furniture. And with furniture, it's a little bit harder. I mean, parts of the furniture usually has this non-organic hybrid. This is the reason why we created the soft category. Equipment rarely going to have stuffing, and yeah, devices could, tools could have, but equipment's not going to have them. Yeah, furniture. So, in its underlying structure, furniture is probably going to be a solid as the base, but then it's going to be a soft. So now it's a question where exactly to put, like, what exactly to put this into category. Like, for instance, there are some tools and devices that could have softs in them, but in most cases they're probably going to be analyzed as solids. Most of the equipments are solids, most of the tools and devices are solids, most of the constructions are solids, transport buildings are solids. Although they could have a hybrid element to them, they still going to have, in most cases, a solid approach. And again, by solid approach, what I mean is the way how we're going to attack this problem by simplifying using cubes, cylinders, and spheres. We're almost done. It's already time. The last thing that I'm going to do is just basically end up with these categories, and that's kind of it. So again, furniture is going to be our last one, and I believe furniture is better to put furniture in here, because maybe not. Most of the furniture is kind of solid still. Yeah, most of them are kind of solids. But then the question lies, why we created a category of the hybrid non-organic, like that, like when the only thing that fits this category is stupid pillow. That's it. It's kind of an interesting thing though. I can't think of anything or like a non-organic hybrid that basically will be most cases soft. It's just like just pillows. That's it. Most of the furniture, we can actually talk about. Okay, maybe soft furniture, and it's not furniture. Could call accessories. Okay, let's think. For instance, mattresses, pillows. What the category? What this category is though? Is it accessory, like furniture accessories? Yeah, let's just call it furniture accessories. I don't have another answer for it. Let's just call it furniture accessories. Furniture accessories. I tried to find the word. It's a pretty big one. Accessory is accessories. So furniture accessories. So this is exactly like the pillows, the mattresses, and everything that basically has this structure of fabric inside, outside, and stuffing inside, outside and inside. In most cases, this is a furniture accessories. which could be... I will think about those categories outside of the streams too. Maybe we'll find something more interesting. When it comes down to the drapery, we're not going to necessarily categorize it, because when it comes down to the drapery, there's a lot of stuff there. So... By the way, by furniture, I mean even the toilet. I mean, for me, the toilet, it's still a furniture. At least I'm putting it as this type of category. We could look at this as an equipment. Or construction. Either way, it's going to be analyzed as a either regular solid or hybrid solid. So yeah. So yeah, this is kind of getting closer to it. So the last thing that we're going to go through is the drapery, and then we're going to probably finish. So let's see what we have in drapery. We have clothes and accessories, and again, accessories, there's a lot of them. There's, again, glasses, belts, and other stuff. So in most cases, I guess when it comes down to the drapery, is the drapery itself. There's multiple categories, so it's basically clothes, then we have regular accessories or clothes accessories. Accessories are here too. Just separate accessories. What else we have? So when we're talking about clothes, it's everything that works with even shoes. So I'm considering like shoes as a cloth. Clothes. Ugh, clothes. Clothes. Yeah, item worn to cover the body. So again, you can cover the body and parts of the body, even shoes. So clothes, accessories, and I guess just regular drapery. Just cloth of any kind. So ideally we have three categories in drapery. So it's cloth, clothes, and accessories. So let's just quickly go through more, maybe miss something. No, I guess this is kind of it. When it comes down to the drapery itself, it's just the way how it behaves. So the types of clothes, the rest is just the methods of drawing it. If we're going to think about separating them and attacking them a little bit differently, this is what it is. So again, to repeat myself, basically what I did right now, it might be confusing why I did this, like this thing. So basically the reason why I did this is to understand how to attack each of those things. So for instance, these separations that we established before, like solids, softs, and elements, this is just a way to probably maybe we need to set this one separately and put it in here. I'm thinking. And of course we have elements. So yeah, this is going to be the way how to view them. It's probably good to have more than one. Probably going to have multiple categories. Okay, I'm going to work on it probably separately. We need to think about that. So this is something that I need to spend a certain amount of time to think about. So yeah, in terms of the states that our elements are usually taking, it's going to be a little bit different. So 3 basic states. Let's just find them. It's somewhere here. Static, dynamic. I have so many information that it's just sometimes hard to find what it is. Okay, here it is. So 3. State of aggregation, seriously? This is the way that it's called in English? State of aggregation, one of the 3 or more fundamentals, form, conditions, or states of matter that are commonly considered to include the solid, liquid, and gaseous forms, and often others such as colloidal. Ooh. What is colloidal? I don't even know what this is. Yeah, I guess when it comes down to the elements, we're going to look at them in 3, again, states. This is just the regular states. Again, we're going to view them as solids, liquid, this is what I had in mind at the beginning, but then I kind of confused myself with the purpose of this. So liquid, and of course thirst is gaseous. Gaseous. I wanna hear how it sounds. Gaseous.
Gaseous.
Gaseous. Seriously? Gaseous? I would call it gaseous. Gaseous. So the gaseous state. So basically gases. So when it comes down to the liquid, of course, this is water. When it comes down to gases, it's basically clouds and smoke. Fire, it's a little bit different thing. It's probably going to be okay, maybe fire, this is exactly this. Nope. We could actually consider fire as gas, as the type of gas. I don't know. At least I could see it as this type of category. Because it's not material, you can't touch it. It's like a gas. So yeah, I guess it's a gas. So yeah, the elements solid, liquid, gaseous, and when it comes down to what forms the elements usually will take, this is a little bit hard. Like this is much harder questions that we're probably going to talk about later. I don't believe that I'm going to come up with something solid at this particular point. We also have an energy, but you can draw an energy. So clouds, smoke, water, fire, and right here we could think about ice too, and we could separate them into 3 solids, liquids, and gaseous, and basically separate them on 3 categories. yeah, let's just do that. And finish on that note. So yeah, let's just do the last thing for today. So we have separation for softs, for solids, and for the elements. One of the reasons why I'm doing this is to understand better how to attack these problems, because again, it's not easy to if I will know how to attack each category, it's going to be a little bit easier for me. So for instance, like again, we could attack pillow a little bit differently, but when we're working with pillows, we're going to consider the fabric, we're going to consider stuffing, and based on that, we're going to combine two kind of methods at the same time. When the same goes with the human form, or with organics, again, with all vegetations, with the creatures, we will combine organic and non-organic things together. And in some cases it's going to look more solid than anything else. So for instance, if we're talking about the tree usually could be considered as solid, but this is organic, and because of this I decided to put it into softs. It's kind of a living organism. So yeah, go into the elements. So again, in elements we're just going to repeat solid, liquid, and gaseous. Gaseous and gaseous. Gases. So yeah, we have solids, we have liquids, we have gaseous, and now we finally can separate them. So clouds and smoke are going to be gases. Fire is going to be gas. Water is going to be, of course, liquid. And solid is going to be ice in this particular instance. And later I will create more here. Probably will add more here. Because when it comes down to the gaseous, we can think about atmospheric perspective too, but again, usually clouds are the part of the atmosphere. So, and fire and smoke are kind of connected. So because of this, could actually kind of combine them. So yeah, so one thing that I will do outside of the streams, I will try to work on making these categories solid. I will try to think what type of softs we could actually implement here and how to analyze them. And the basic idea for this is to know how to approach each type of category. So for instance, every time that we're going to deal with furniture accessories such as pillows and mattresses and something similar to that, we're going to approach it a little bit differently, and and I need to find a way how to approach them. So for instance, we could start with the plane. Yeah, we could start with the basic silhouette, then we could basically create a simple cube, and then based on that create a form lines. So this might be the way to deal with things such as mattresses and pillows. When it comes down to, for instance, and everything that works with fabric and like with non-organic hybrids, which basically made from fabric outside and from stuffing inside. And these two categories are going to be important. What's inside of it, what's outside of it is going to affect the behavior of what we're dealing with. When it comes down to the organic, again, usually we're going to have some type of underlying structure, basic anatomy, or what's underneath this organic hybrid. Usually every time it's going to be a hybrid. All vegetation is hybrid, usually are hybrid. Creatures are hybrids, and some of them are going to have skin, hair. Most of everything has skin and hair. Even the tree has skin and somewhat of a hair, which basically leaves. So, and I will try to come up with some type of an overall understanding how to attack the organic hybrids as a whole. So how to work with all types of vegetations and creatures and how to attack them similarly. So again, in most cases, what I need to do outside of the stream is to come up with the method of dealing with furniture accessories, which we start with like pillows and mattresses. I definitely need to kind of find the proper way to do that, and we're kind of getting close, but it's still not feeling controlled. We need to find a way to deal with organic hybrids, which is again everything that involves vegetations and creatures, including us, humans, and all other animals and all living organisms. How to approach like all living organisms to create one big category and method for solving these type of problems. And of course, the separate one is going to be a drapery, which again will deal with clothes, with cloth that usually we're wearing, and accessories that are like the additions to the clothes. The thing about accessories, though, some of the accessories could go into the solid category, into the regular solid category. So it probably could be a good idea to put some accessories into the solids too, because some of the accessories to the clothes are going to go here. Let's just put C, which means clothes accessories. They're going to go into this category. Yeah, the same will go. The same thing we will do for our hybrids. Depending on what type of like if we're going to actually have a hybrid. If we're going to lean towards something a little bit more regular, then we're going to try to deal with how to attack it. But again, when it comes down with solids, we already find method. So this one is kind of already solved. This one is solved, how to work with it, because most of these things you're going to just analyze as regular solids based on simple primitives. It's just going to use cube, cylinder, and sphere to solve these problems. With softs it's a little bit harder, and because of this you need to find your own personal method to use to do that. So sometimes we're going to start with primitives, sometimes we're going to work with silhouettes, with planes, I don't know. So it all depends. And because of this we needed to create this separation and find 3 ways to solve most of the softs. When it comes down to solids, again, we solved it, kinda. So softs are still in question. We need to kind of figure it out. And with elements, elements are a little bit harder to deal with because, again, I guess let's just put them as a question mark for now. Although I don't believe that I'm going to have troubles with working with them, because usually it's all about the dynamic. If I want to create a fire, I'm just going to create like interesting shape. So when it comes down to the elements, usually we're going to deal with shapes, not necessarily with form itself, because they don't have form usually. So I guess we could call it like clear, and the answer is basically shapes. So every time that we're going to deal with clouds, smoke, fire, water, ice, in most cases we're going to deal with shapes, because they're usually not going to have form. And it's all about shapes and materials, and because of this, it's hard way. It's pretty unrealistic to find a way to simplify ice, water, and clouds, smoke, and fire, and other elements, because they are elements. You can't simplify them. It's easier to look at them as like something like shapes and materials, which is basically rendering. So this is basically the solution how to deal with elements. Solids using primitives, and since we're now working with the type of subjects only solid and soft, we didn't cover elements. Elements are kind of separate from that, because for elements we're not going to use methods, we're not going to use modifications, we're not going to use positioning in most cases, or at least not in a regular way. To not confuse, since we're not able to simplify elements, I decided to not put elements here. So our main goal is to see only things that we can touch and we could interact with. It doesn't mean that we can't interact with clouds, smoke, fire, water, and ice, but in another way. So again, primitives, cube, cylinder, a sphere. Solution is here. Figured out how to deal with solids, figured out how to deal with elements. The last thing to figure out is how to deal with softs, and since now we created throughout this stream 3 separate categories, now it's all about figuring out how to deal with these 3 separate categories. Hopefully till the next stream I will already solve this, and hopefully there's going to be a solution, because after this we probably will start to do something a little bit more interesting than that. But again, I can't say anything at this point because I don't know how much I'm going to sit in this. So hopefully till the next session I will solve this problem. It's all about finding like the method of like analytical method. So what we need to start with every time that we're going to deal, for instance, with non-organic hybrids such as furniture accessories. So again, as an example, we could start with a plane. We could then create a cube, and then based on that, add form lines. So again, we're kind of working with from silhouette first, from kind of a plane first, then silhouette, then integrating primitives, and then adding form lines, peaks and valleys. So again, this is kind of a pretty complex work when it comes down to solving problems with solids. And depending on what type of solid we're going to work with, it's going to be a little bit differently. So I need to actually kind of find all types of furniture accessories that exist, find a way to simplify this method and actually kind of solve it. The same goes for drapery, and the same goes for creatures and vegetation. So yeah, this is kind of it, I guess. That's it for today. Kind of tired, need to go to sleep, although I doubt that I'm going to sleep. Still a lot of things to do. So on that note, we're going to end the session. Yeah, thank you for watching, thank you for being here, have a nice day or night, and see you in the next session, which is again going to be, if nothing it will change, this Saturday. See you then, bye. Tony says bye too.